going on, everybody? Welcome to the Doghouse, a fan's best friend
for all things sports.
Oh, thanks for finishing it there for me, Beach. So today, super excited for this episode 3 of our NFL discussions. We're going to be diving into a recap, talking about the teams that we think won free agency from each division. So, Beach, as you can see, I am feeling very patriotic today, sporting a jersey from the no longer Patriot, my guy, Mac Jones. So if it's okay with you, before we dive into our content for the day, I really just like to say a quick farewell message to our fallen soldier, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
All right.
His stint was impactful but short.
Well, that's one way to put it. So, Mac Jones, I know you're out here listening to this somewhere. You're one of our many, many views. And to you, I would like to say, first of all, thank you for absolutely nothing. Here's what I'll say. Okay, we come in first year, things are fine, right? We have some stuff going on. We get to the Pro Bowl. And mind you, we get to the Pro Bowl on a freaking, decline from, I think it was Lamar Jackson, or no, that was Huntley or whatever, gets to the Pro Bowl, fine. Come back. I know you have a defensive coordinator as your offensive coordinator. That's dysfunctional alone. But, dude, don't have tantrums on the field. Don't throw it to the defense. Be a leader. And you know what? Here's where you are now. You're in Jacksonville, your home state. That's great. And you're a backup to Trevor Lawrence, who was picked before you in your draft. So, Mac Jones, you've broken my heart. And now my heart will not be affected by you any longer. This is a retirement of the jersey.
I'm glad you got that off your chest.
All right, Doghouse Sports. Free agency is well in progress here, Beach. And, one thing that I think is interesting as we head into free agency year after year is that really we see the action start before free agency itself actually starts.
I mean, most of the big signings were made once the tampering period opened on Monday, even though the new league year in free agency didn't officially open till Wednesday afternoon. So you're exactly right.
Yeah, and then we get to see Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter give us the official tweet on all the signings when they happen. But yeah, we do see a lot come through before free agency itself. I think a lot of action though, a lot of exciting stuff. I was happy to see that some of the predictions we made didn't necessarily come through true, but we did get to see some of the player movement that we expected to happen occur. So that was fun to see. So in today's episode, what are we going to be doing there division by division?
Yeah, we're just going to be highlighting the team that we thought did the best in free agency from each division.
Perfect. Yeah, so I guess we'll kick it off with the AFC. Now, I believe you have two teams, one from the AFC South and one from the AFC West. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah. And I guess
you want to start with one of those?
Yeah, I'll start with the AFC West, which is my team, the Chargers division. I wish I could say the Chargers had the best free agency in their division. They did not. I don't think they had an awful free agency. Like, we were in a horrendous cap situation. I think that really hindered us. And I mean, we did more. We had more like big names leave than come in. We traded Keenan Allen for a fourth to the Bears. We let Mike Williams walk. And I'll admit, like, when I first heard that Keenan Allen news, my heart was broken. I love Keenan Allen. He's been one of the best Chargers of my lifetime. And to see him traded for just a fourth broke my heart. Like, I get it, he carries a big price tag. He's in the 30s. But I don't know. I mean, I know I'm rambling a bit, not focusing on the task, but personally, I think I would have rather really get rid of Khalil Mack than Keenan Allen.
They were going to make a choice. They were going to have to choose between offense and defense, and they strongly chose defense.
Yeah, and that is what's weird is Harbaugh was a quarterback, but you feel like he's more of a defensive guy. He gives that vibe.
He's in the trenches guy. He likes to have the defensive pieces. and the linemen.
But like
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like while Mac had a fantastic year last year, I feel like it was a bit skewed because he had a couple games where he had like a lot of sacks. Um, but we made our decision. We're rolling with it. But anyway, I as much as I hate to say it, I think the team that had the best free agency was none other than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm.
Uh, I our division in a whole didn't do too much. Like I mentioned, the Chargers, the Raiders, their biggest was Christian Wilkins, which was a great signing, but that's really all they did. The Broncos, I mean, they also let go of Jerry Judy. They didn't really bring in anyone super note. And I mean, being honest, I feel like the AFC West in general really didn't do much. Even the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, while they had a good free agency, they more were prioritizing bringing guys back than adding guys. But I mean, that's still important, and they did it. They brought back Chris Jones, which is absolutely massive. They got him extended for many years to come. They
Huge.
franchise tag L'Jarius Sneed. So like those are two pillars of their defense. Um, and they like a more underrated re-signing was Drew Tranquil.
I saw
Really
that.
good linebacker for them. Used to play on the Chargers. But like all in all, like they're Super Bowl champions. When you're Super Bowl champions, it's not like you have to like as long as you retain, you're going to be good, and that's what they did. They didn't really lose anyone of note on either side of the ball, and they added what has a potential to be a sneaky good signing in Hollywood Brown. Like he's never probably fully lived up to his first round status, but he's had a couple good seasons. He's proven that he can be a good receiver, and
You know
I
what
mean,
that move feels like to me? Feels a lot like Smith Schuster when he came to the Chiefs. I could see Hollywood Brown having a big season there and then
I
getting
mean,
a
I,
lot of
I
attention.
think I think Hollywood's better, so I could see him having a bigger season than Juju did. But no, yeah, like I mean, anytime you get paired with Patrick Mahomes, you have the opportunity to be great. So,
True
um,
that.
I mean, all in all, I feel like the AFC West was kind of boring. But I mean, you can't. I mean, the Chiefs know what they're doing. They've been a great team for a while now, and I think they're going to be another. I mean, at this point, I'm saying I think they're the favorite again next year. So
Yeah, your division has some excitement. There's been excitement, I think, really since Harbaugh got there, just around
I
what
mean,
are all
yeah,
these teams
that
going to
was the
look like.
biggest excitement.
I
Was Harbaugh.
I was a little surprised with the lack of movement from the Broncos.
Yeah,
They
I'm not
got
sure of
Russell
their.
Wilson out, but
I'm not sure of their cap situation because I think
yeah.
they ate a lot of dead
Well,
money.
I know they're having his salary for breakfast, lunch, and dinner the next year, but yeah, it's tough tough waters over there. But yeah, I mean, I think overall the Chiefs. I know you don't love the Chargers moves. I have to be honest. I didn't hate it. Sure, maybe it feels like Keenan Allen should get you more, but you're keeping Bosa and you're gonna keep Mac, and I know we'll see what happens and if those seasons are going to be as good as they were last year. But I don't hate the moves. We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see what they do to close out free agency.
Yeah, for sure. So you're up next. Do you want to go with the with your division?
Yeah, I'll go over to the AFC East with our guys. I think I did enough to let my anger out as far as New England is considered. What I will say is I feel like if we're looking at some recent trades here, not to name any names, Justin Fields, it feels like we got our value out of Mac Jones. When the trade first went through and I saw we were just getting, a rinky dink pick, I was like, that kind of sucks. But he's out of the building. He's somewhere where maybe he'll have some success. For his sake, genuinely, hope it happens, whatever. But for the Patriots, as much as I would love to say they're the winners from our division, what we did is really re-sign the dwindling talent that we have remaining on the team. So it's not, we didn't bring in a receiver, didn't even feel like we had a lot of effort there. We didn't bring in a big name offensive lineman that we needed tackle. We're
Yeah,
saving clearly all of our needs for the draft. So
what's
not
kind
the
of funny
Patriots.
is well, yeah, what's kind of funny is like you kind of had a similar strategy to the Chiefs, bringing back your own guys, but the difference is they brought back superstars. You brought back mid-tier starters.
Yeah, here's the secret. We're not the Chiefs and we don't have Patrick Mahomes. Shocker. I think personally the Bills had a pretty poor free agency. I don't love the lack of movement, but also really anything they did. So it's not going to be the Bills for me. I think the Dolphins everyone's going to look at that and think of Christian Wilkins. I think, obviously it feels weird that they didn't make a little more effort there. I think D-line, interior D-line is becoming another kind of key position for teams that they're really willing to pay. So that was a little strange. And really just for that reason, even though I think they brought back some key pieces, didn't pick them. So that brings us to a team who had a really exciting offseason last year. And I do think for the purposes of where their team's at, did the best job here, and that's the Jets. So just to quickly kind of run through what I was looking at, if we look back at what we said before in our pre-free agency rankings, our biggest needs for them were tackle, number one, receiver, number two, and then safety and D-line because of Quentin Jefferson. We thought they were going to lose. So first of all, what did they redo, or what did they do on their defense? They did let Quentin Jefferson walk, okay, but then they brought in Javon Kinlaw, and we'll see how that goes. I know there's definitely some mixed opinions there, but I think that could be a solid replacement. For tackles, they signed Tyron Smith, which I think everyone saw. And what I don't think people are talking about, who I think might be, if not a full year starter for them, a solid piece. They also brought in Morgan Moses. So
yeah, and that could honestly end up being the more impactful signing because
yeah,
Tyron Smith has more of an injury history. So you're not really sure if you're going to get a full year of Tyron Smith at this point. Um, well, Morgan Moses has quietly been a very good starter for the Ravens the past couple seasons.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and they also we just brought in Mike Williams, got that signing done. I think that is a great signing. Aaron Rodgers loves having a downfield threat. I can see in a perfect world, if this works out, we get Rodgers back at who he is. A lot of touchdowns in the red zone being scored by Aaron Rodgers lobbing the ball up to Mike Williams. And you got Garrett Wilson on the other side. I mean, I like that. We'll see if they add anyone else in the draft. But honestly, this free agency very clearly was to set Aaron Rodgers up for success. And in my mind, I think they did almost all they could to do that.
Yeah, they definitely went heavy on the veteran free agents.
For sure.
Like all three of those big names, Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, and Morgan Moses are all in their 30s. So yeah, and I think I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done with O-line or receiver because of that, because of the injury history with Williams and Smith. I agree. I think the Jets are the clear winner of that division as far as free agency goes. I like the signings for where their team is at. But the injury history does scare me a bit.
For sure.
And I would actually bet that they don't get Williams and Smith for 4 years. But
Yeah. The other thing they did, just to quickly finish out here, they also brought in Tyrod Taylor, who, if for some reason Rodgers is dealing with an injury that's a couple weeks, Taylor's a guy who can come in and win you games, which I also liked that. So definitely think it was a good offseason for the Jets so far.
Yeah, I think it was someone high up in the Jets. I don't know if it was their owner or manager, but they made a comment, I think, where they felt that they didn't have a backup quarterback last year.
Well, yeah, I could see. They shouldn't have let Mike White go. Should have kept him there.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the NFC East. I think the biggest surprise here was that the Cowboys really didn't do much. I think their biggest signing was Eric Hendricks, linebacker, which is of course from the Chargers. But quote unquote America's team. I mean, they lost a lot too. They lost several pieces of their line. They lost starting center Smith. I'm not a Cowboys supporter, so it kind of makes me smile a bit that they haven't done much. And then looking at the Commanders actually brought in a lot of guys. Their free agency confused me a bit because they brought in some veterans like Ertz and Bobby Wagner, guys that you wouldn't think would be on a rebuilding team, but I guess they want veteran leadership, and they do want to set up their whoever young quarterback they draft. I guess they don't want him to be on an awful team, which makes sense,
Yeah.
And the Giants did some, but they didn't do anything major. And so that brings me to the winner. I think it's the Eagles. Howie Roseman, man, he proves it seems like every year that he's one of the best GMs in the game. And the big names he brought in Bryce Huff, who was a very underrated player for the Jets last year. He got 10 sacks as like a rotation guy, not a full-time starter. They brought in, of course, the big name Saquon Barkley. Now, only time will tell if it was worth spending the money, that much money on a running back. Um, but he has potential to really do something special in that system. Pairing with Jalen Hurts. And like they also brought back CJ Garner Johnson. I think that was a good move. He played really well for them 2 years ago um when they made some splash in postseason. And I think bringing a ball hawk like that back is very, very beneficial. Um, and Devin White, he had up and down years, but adding some juice to your linebacker room. I think what the Eagles did was they knew their needs and they addressed those pretty well. I still think that they'll continue to do so in the draft, specifically in the secondary. They have some old legs in the secondary. I think some youth infused would be a good idea. But I think the Eagles are primed for a comeback year. They started off super strong before fading late. I think they did nothing but help their chances of being another contender. I think their biggest flaw last year was coaching, and they brought in two great coordinators in Fangio and Moore. So I think the it's pointing up for the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I definitely understand why you're saying the Eagles. I think I probably lean a little bit more positive on the Commanders' moves. Maybe part of that is me just wishing that's what the Patriots would have done, and they would have brought in some veteran talent. But I really like the idea of whether it's going to be Jaden Daniels or Drake May, having those pieces not only to give him somebody to work with, but also to set the culture. You got new ownership coming in, you got new coaches, GM across the board. So let's bring in people who we know can get the job done, set us a culture. They have winning in their background. I really like those moves. The Saquon Barkley signing makes me a little nervous for the Eagles, like you mentioned, but we will see. So I'll bring us over to the NFC West then. And this one, it might surprise you a little bit. I don't think anyone in the West had crazy moves. So it's tough to say the Rams win free agency when they're going to lose Aaron Donald for retirement. That's a big loss. It's a huge loss. I think he's a big reason their defense was serviceable last year, so I think that's going to hurt them. The Niners, they kept their core pieces intact like we thought they would. Didn't add too much. They got, they replaced their backup quarterback in Sam Darnold, but nothing too crazy there. And then the Cardinals, I think, are holding off for the draft. I know they got a couple first-round picks, so we'll see how that goes. But I didn't feel like anything they did really excited me. So who I have winning in the West is the Seahawks. As a reminder, some of our needs for them were interior O-line, linebacker, D-line, and then we did list tight end and quarterback. I'm going to start right out, though, with the move that I love. The pick swap and then acquiring Sam Howell from the Commanders. So they gave up a third and a fifth, and in return, they got a fourth and a sixth, and then they got Sam Howell. I absolutely love this speech. I know that there was some low lows for Sam Howell last year, but I think that people don't talk enough about the highs that we saw. I was watching a highlight reel from him on TikTok.
And there was one point pretty far into the season where he was leading the league in passing yards.
Yeah.
And I mean, the truth of the matter is the Commanders were just not a good team. And of course, some of his shortcomings were on him. But when you're on a bad team, those are amplified. I concur with you 100%, Steve. I think it's a low cost, low risk move to bring him in. Geno Smith didn't have as great of a year last year as he had 2 years ago. So you bring in a guy like Sam Howell, if Geno struggles or you could either replace him this year or look to implement Howell in the following year. I like it a lot too, Steve.
I was gonna say, who do you think the week one starter is? You think it's Geno?
Yeah, I mean,
see,
there's a chance it's Howell, especially because it's a brand new coaching staff, and you know how that is. Maybe they're not as loyal to Geno as the old staff, but the bottom line is you have more money in Geno at this point. Geno is the veteran, and he didn't play badly last year.
That's true.
So I do think he is the week one starter. But
yeah. So I mean, besides Sam Howell, They did let some key defensive pieces walk. Bobby Wagner is no longer going to be a Seahawk after revisiting. Jordan Brooks, they let walk, and then also Jamal Adams. But they did, and I love this move as well, acquire Jerome Baker on a 1-year deal at linebacker. So I think that's going to help fill any gaps left there. And they also signed two deep defensive backs in Kayvon Wallace and Rashawn Jenkins, I believe. Yeah. So I like the moves. They also re-signed Noah Fant, so they got tight end locked up. They have decent weapons on offense.
Yeah, I
I like
mean,
what this.
I think your analysis at the beginning was 100% spot on. Where with like this division in general, really didn't feel like they had a lot of splash moves, a lot of necessary like winners. So I I think the Seahawks probably were the best of the bunch. Just what I will say is like I do like the Cardinals. They did bring in Sean Murphy Bunting, and I thought corner was like so bare for them, and so to bring in a very capable starter there, I think that was a very good move. Um, and so like maybe outside of Sam Howell, actually, that's my favorite move for that division.
I can
Uh,
see that.
because corner is such an impactful position. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. All right, so I guess we'll go back to me,
Yes, sir.
and I guess I'll take us. Do you want to go to the NFC or AFC?
Go back over to AFC then, I suppose. We'll do. What do you have left?
I have the AFC South.
Go ahead. Take us there.
All right. So this one was also like a tough one. Each team, other than the Colts were very inactive, which is that's something I didn't necessarily know until I was like looking through all the teams. For a team that was very middle of the pack, you would think they might try to like add some players to get them over the hump, but they didn't. I mean, like their biggest signing was probably Joe Flacco as a backup quarterback. Like,
No,
and
big move.
so I guess that they're going to really try to hit home runs in the draft. But anyway, the other teams did make moves, like the Titans added Ridley on offense,
I love
and
that.
um, Pollard as well at running back. But I think they overpaid Ridley.
I
Um,
agree.
and the Jags were very active. Um, they brought in Mitch Morse at center. So they like I think that was smart to shore up their O line, protect their guy and Trevor Lawrence. But like they downgraded at wide receiver by signing Gabe Davis. Um,
Yeah.
now I agree, like I just said, I agree they shouldn't have paid Calvin Ridley. So I think they made the right move in not re-signing Calvin Ridley. But anyway, so that brings me to who I think my winner is, and that be the Houston Texans. I think I the Houston Texans were surprised last year, right? So you were like, no one. I think they won like 2 or 3 games the year before, and then they won 10 last year. I mean, they skyrocketed, and that is
Yeah.
contributed to mainly D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud. And so this year, that means they were able to make moves more similar to like a contender than a team rebuilding. And like Danielle Hunter, like that's the big one, right? Like
Excellent. Yep.
like to pair him with Will Anderson, massive. Like that's going to be a nightmarish duo for
It's gonna make
opposing
Will
players.
Anderson a lot more exciting too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, because like Will Anderson, he had a great rookie season, um, but like instead of like teams having to focus on him, they're probably going to focus on Hunter, which means that his stats will probably go up. They also made the low what's the word, like they didn't give a lot of capital up for Joe Mixon. You know,
Yeah.
um, I'm not the
Probably what he's
biggest Joe
worth.
Mixon guy. I always thought Joe Mixon's a little overrated. I wasn't sure why the Bengals held on from him as long as they did.
We talked about that.
And
Yeah.
the Texans also gave him a pretty big contract, which I thought was strange. But as far as like the terms of the trade go, it was good value. And they also brought in a couple other guys. Denico Altry. I think he's going to be great. He's a really good veteran. They brought in who else did they get? They got also Al Shahar from the linebacker from the Titans, very underrated player. So I think this team is primed to have another good year, maybe even better. And I overall I like what they did for agency.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I know we were talking about this. I was up at the in Boston for a conference, and I got to hear Nick Caserio speak there. Let me tell you, and I'm trying to stay non-biased here because obviously we got the Patriots roots. That guy's brilliant, Beach. I mean, he speaks with confidence. He's a great speaker. That's awesome, but he is a football genius, and he is the best thing that has happened to the Houston Texans, maybe in the history of their franchise. So yeah, he knows what he's doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Who we got next, Stevie?
Well, I guess I'll finish off the AFC here. So we'll go to AFC North, and we've had a couple divisions now where it was tough to pick a winner, really because there wasn't a lot of action. This was my most difficult pick of the day. I think that the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns could be argued as the winners in any division. To be honest, I think they all had really solid free agencies. I
Really?
ended up. I personally do. Yeah, I don't think the Bengals did anything too crazy. I chose not to go with the Browns because I feel like they're in a tough spot with Deshaun Watson's contract. I don't love that they're dropping money on Jerry Jeudy like that, but I like that they acquired him. And then it was really then the Ravens and the Steelers for me. I think the Ravens are probably the more savvy of the two. When we talked in our first episode, it was about our concerns around how they're going to retain some of their key players. I think they let it, like Patrick Queen walk, for example, but they navigated around some of that change. I ended up going with the Steelers, and I think we might have some disagreement here, but here's why. The Steelers historically, I think, are such a loyal organization. You know, they get a quarterback, that's their guy, regardless of media or how he's playing or what it is. You know, especially with the guy like Kenny Pickett, who is homegrown.
Yeah.
And instead of continuing down this trap that is called loyalty in the NFL, they shipped him away. They actually
Yeah.
got rid of their entire quarterback room,
They
brought in
did.
Russell Wilson while the Broncos are paying for him, brought in Justin Fields, got pretty much a free year there. And and now they have the chance to take those two QBs, see how this season works out. Worst case scenario, they just let them both go next year and reset in the draft. But I think that those two moves probably top five free agency in my opinion. So you know, besides that, that's definitely weighing on why I'm picking the Steelers here. But they did sign Patrick Queen, gave him a pretty big deal for a linebacker. But I think he's a solid player. I know there's some bad blood now with the Ravens, so they probably like that as the rivalry grows. They also brought in Dante Jackson, corner, because they ended up releasing Patrick Peterson, so I thought that was a good move. A wide receiver with trading Johnson, I'm thinking maybe draft now for them in round one or
Yeah.
two. But
Sure.
the Steelers were my choice from the North.
Yeah, and I think I do agree with you because of what they did with their quarterbacks. Like that was such a drastic, but so efficient, cost efficient. Like Fields is still in his rookie deal. Wilson, you're paying like I think the minimum because the Broncos are still paying I think almost $40 million for him not to be um on the roster. But the one thing I do want to say about the division, I feel like you like skipped over the Bengals a little bit. Um where I like some of their moves, like I think moving on from Joe Mixon was the right move. And they brought in Trent Brown, who is injury prone, but he's good when healthy. Um, so I I think I liked actually the Bengals more than the Browns, but I agree that the Steelers are the, the best of the
Yeah, I
bunch.
can see that. I definitely have some bias with Trent Brown there. He's injury prone, and I don't love some of the things, and who knows if it's media or the truth, but some of the things you hear about him in the media. But yeah, I felt like the Steelers at the end of the day, the winners there. So head off to the NFC. We'll finish up our last two teams here. So I think you have.
The NFC North. And I think the obvious choice here would be the Bears. They brought in Keenan Allen. They shipped away Fields to kind of start anew with presumably Caleb Williams. And they also re-signed Jalen Johnson, you know, and so they're the obvious choice, but I'm not going to go with them. So then you have the Packers. The Packers didn't do too much. They signed Josh Jacobs, but I don't view him that much of an upgrade over a healthy Aaron Jones. I don't. And the Vikings had some good signings, but more so like middle of the and I mean the Jonathan Greenard signing was, but my winner is going to be the Detroit Lions. That that
Okay.
that's who I'm going with. And I feel like maybe some of their moves weren't like as widely advertised, clearly as much as the Bears. But let's see who the key guys they added. They added Kevin Zeitler. Um, Previously was a member of the Ravens. Really good, rock solid guard. That was one of their needs because they lost Jonah Jackson.
Yeah.
And because the Lions are in a point right now where they're contenders, which is crazy to say, but you can afford to sign a guy like that, someone who is on the older side but still performing at a high level. They brought in two guys on the defensive line, Marcus Davenport, who admittedly I don't expect too much out of him, but it's a low cost, potentially high reward signing. And DJ Reader, they now have DJ Reader and
That's a good sign.
McNeil, who are great run defenders. That should be a really hard team to run against. But then maybe their best addition was not even like a free agent signing, but trading for Carlton Davis, the corner, because
Mm.
that was their biggest need. And they kind of got exposed in the secondary in the playoffs. Established veteran starter who was still on the right side of 30, I think was a very savvy move. So I feel like I really like what the Lions did. Nothing was splashy, nothing was like super newsworthy, but they did nothing but kind of just restock the coffers, and are probably primed for another deep run.
Yeah, I was set after you said that to argue for the Bears. I don't think I tracked, like you said, some of the Lions' moves there. I like a lot of what they did. Maybe what I'd say in favor of the Bears is that I think that they showed Justin Fields just how much they love Caleb Williams in the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks. I mean, they pulled out all the stops to get an offense for him that is hopefully place you down, see success. But yeah, I like those Lions moves. So all finishes off then. We got the NFC South left. I think you said the Bears are probably the easy pick in the North. I think everybody's talking about the Falcons as the pick in the South because of Kirk Cousins. I'll be honest. I mean, they paid him. They're gonna feel that. So the Falcons are not my pick from the South. The
Oh,
the Panthers are kind of a wreck, but I don't hate the Johnson trade. That was a little bit redeeming, but like I don't see why you let Burns walk if you were so gung ho on keeping him when you were being offered like first round picks for the guy. So that befuddles me. And then we get to what my pick is here, which is not the New Orleans Saints, who just signed an injury prone Chase Young who has to have surgery. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I don't know if you remember, but in our NFC free agency video, we talked about the fact that the Buccaneers, a little bit like the Chargers, we're going to either have to choose between their key defensive pieces or a guy that we call Mike Evans. And then, Baker Mayfield, we'll see what happens.
yeah.
I absolutely am in love with the way they handled this. So let's talk
I
about
mean,
it.
they
Who
got
they
their
let
cake
walk?
and eat. They were to have their cake and eat it too.
They absolutely did. Okay, sure. They let Shaq Barrett walk. They had to let Devin White go. Whatever. You know who they did re-sign, though? They got Winfield on the tag, which is great. I think they need to emphasize getting the deal done there, but they're going to keep him. They got Levante David back on a one-year deal. Awesome. Okay, and then they get Mike Evans for 2 more years for sure. Clearly, he wants to be a Buck, and that's cool. And then Baker Mayfield, the guy's he got his contract 3 years. I think, what was it? Is it 100 for 3 years or something like that?
I'm not sure, but that sounds in the right ballpark.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think that they still have a little bit of work to do, but the thing is, their division is shit. I mean, there is progress being made here, but I think that they
Well,
know.
no, I agree. I really like what the Bucks did. I have to push back a little bit. I do think that the whether the Falcons made the right financial choice with Cousins, I think that as long as Cousins is healthy, that actually makes them the favorite. Um, because they do have a the Falcons kind of had a sneaky good team last year that kind of imploded. I think kind of
As a winner.
due to poor coaching and poor quarterback play. Um, so I would tip my head as the favorites to the Falcons. But yeah, no, I'm in agreement. As far as like free agency goes, I think the Bucks did a great job. I mean, they were able to retain their key guys. They didn't like add any like crazy like free agents, but they added a couple guys. Like they added like Jordan Whitehead, who was going to create a great pairing of safety with
Yeah,
Wentz.
I love that. Yeah.
And they picked up like two like fringe starter types in Ben Bredesen and
For the
Silo
interior
Opeta.
line. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that like with the limited cap space that they had, they did just about as good as you could.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I think in the draft they'll likely look to add edge or corner. Um, at least one of those in round one or two. But yeah, I love the Bucks free agency. Probably my favorite pick besides the Steelers with the quarterbacks here. But Beach, I think unless you have any additional parting words, that's going to wrap us up here. But anything you want to add before we close out this episode?
No, I mean free agency is fun, like and teams always surprise you. Um, so yeah, this was a fun segment.
For sure. Well, thanks for tuning in to the Doghouse, a fan's best friend.
For all things sports.
There he is. We'll see you next time.